Hey guys, this is Bix Weir, roadtoroto.com with part three of my discussion about the U.S. Mint's Silver Eagle conspiracy. Again, I am talking with the head of Silver Eagle sales at the U.S. Mint, Jack Serum. Jack is a great guy. That's my overall take. He's a salesman. He is not fully aware of why things are going on, but he does see that they are operating in many ways that violate the law. So, in the last part, we're going to talk about the Silver Eagle shortage, why the premiums are so high, who's making the money, capacity for Silver Eagle production. He didn't know about the 2021 hedge book losses. He was very surprised at that, and I talked about, yes, it is in the annual report, so it's not like they can hide from that one. The redesign of the Eagle, and then the illegal profit they are making from the Silver Eagle program. It is not. It is not by law supposed to have any profit attached to it. So we go through it all. I will chime in every once in a while, but here it is, part three.
But I mean, you're right. I mean, our primary dealers they cry the blues because they want more coins, but at the same time, they sort of wink and a nod back at me and say, "What can we tell you, Jack? I mean, when you go on allocation, which we don't like to do from a policy standpoint, but when the mint goes on allocation, all these primary dealers and you, for example, you make a hell of a lot more when you sell these things,
right?
Because instead of when we're not allocation, these primary dealers are clubbing each other to make a nickel an ounce delivered.
Right.
There's no money in it.
Yeah. So they're not going to pressure you to do more. They're like, hey, we got to work less and make more money. I'll take that.
But now with allocation, yeah, it's fewer coins. They're making a ton of money, and unfortunately, it's really kind of the investor that ends up. Consumer has to pay more for them, but if you can get $8 or $9 on the bid, I don't know. Maybe it's relative. I mean, that's the same argument you make with gold bars versus bullion coins.
Yep.
Yeah, I got to pay maybe 4% over spot for a bullion coin, where I can get a Credit Suisse bar for spot. But when you go to sell the bullion coin back to a dealer, he's going to give you spot plus 1 to 2%.
Yeah.
A bullion bar, they're just going to give you basically. Well, they're going to give you some premium over melt.
Yeah.
But it's all kind of relative. You pay more on the ask side, but if that premium is high on the ask side, you should theoretically get more on the bid. But I think you're right. Nobody's selling it back. So all anybody feels right now is the pain of having to pay $15.
Right. Yeah.
Where it should be, if we sell them at let's say $3, and we're selling all that we can, and we're meeting market demand, then usually people would only pay a $1 to $2 premium.
Right.
Over. And that's typically what it used to be. So now when we see these $15 premiums, like you say, yeah, I mean, I can't believe there hasn't been more congressional scrutiny. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I just finished working on a congressional letter the other day.
I would like to note that yes, Alex Mooney, Mooney of West Virginia, congressman, did outline and write on August 25th, 2022, last year, Janet Yellen and Ventress Gibson, these are the two heads of, it's the head of Treasury and Ventress Gibson, the director of the Mint, who works for Janet Yellen, and he flat out laid some things how they're breaking the law. It sounds like Jack had just worked on his portion of that, but it is breaking the law if they don't meet coins to meet demand. Now, I don't think they've responded to this, and there's a few things I would add to what Congressman Mooney wrote. But at the same time, let's get some answers from this before we. But let's get some answers for this. It's been way too long. They should have this at the top of their head. They're being accused of breaking the law, and they need to explain it to we the people. So let's keep going.
Republican, of course, asking the very questions you're asking.
All right. I think I did see that letter.
And he's right. I mean, and you're right. I mean, it really comes down to management.
Right.
And I'm not going to say, and how effectively you're managing the program. And
but do you think it's incompetence of management, or is there another agenda they have? Oh, you don't have to answer that question.
You're not going to bait me into that. Answering that. I don't. I don't know if there's another agenda. All I see is the pressure that they're under to try and make all these different coin programs, numismatic and bullion, all in the same calendar year. They only have a finite number of blanks coming from a singular source, and there's just been this proliferation of numismatic programs that also use the 3 9s fine blank. And I've never seen so many programs competing with the Mint bullion coin program. And I think that's all sort of come home to roost, unfortunately. And until the Mint can find another blank supplier, it's not going to get any better. But
I do have to chime in here. Every time I hear that it's a supply issue from the Sunshine Mint, every time I hear that, I go back to, hey, David Ryder made 30 million Silver Eagles in 2000 and 28 million in 2001. So it is not a lack of blanks. There's something else going on here because of David Ryder, because they were blaming COVID the whole time. And during COVID, they were making 30 million Silver Eagles. So that excuse about the blanks is flat out wrong, because they were able to do it. They ramped up from, I think it was 19 in 2019, or even less than that, up to 30 million in 2020 and 28 million in 2021, even though Ventures Gibson cut off half that year. So every time I hear that, it gnaws at me.
But like, because I said, West Point's got all kinds of capacity.
Yeah.
They can make so much more. They can make 50 million a year, but
right.
They've done it.
Yep.
But they just can't get the blanks out of Sunshine, and they can't get the blanks anywhere else. And I'll tell you this: there's a company in Miami that recently went out of business, Republic Metals.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty well known. They crashed and burned. Kind of an interesting story. But so they were bought by, I don't know, Asahi or some company, and they would have the potential to potentially make blanks. And our procurement people are talking to all these people. And I just talked to them recently, our procurement people, about it, and said, why can't you get like Republic Online or Asahi or something? And they said something very interesting. They said, well, a lot of these companies, they could probably do it, but in order for them to meet the Mint's spec, silver blank spec, they would need capital investment. They would need to buy presses.
Right.
Would have to be used, and they said, from what they're hearing, it takes like a couple of years to get these presses.
Yeah.
And he says, so before we can bring anyone new on, and that's the other thing. Some people have said, well, we don't want to invest in all these capital improvements and all these new presses unless you can guarantee us an order of 10 million blanks a year.
Exactly.
And the Mint does not do business that way.
Yeah.
The Mint, believe it or not, is saying, we're not going to guarantee anything. We want you to take all the risk and spend millions of dollars upgrading your plant and equipment so you can meet the Mint spec, but we're not going to guarantee we're going to buy from you.
Didn't the Mint used to make their own blanks?
I think they may have long before I got here in 1987, and we weren't then.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the other thing you may be aware. We basically have two suppliers, Sunshine and Leach and Garner, LNG.
Mm-hmm.
But Leach and Garner fell apart last year, they had some quality issues, and they were regularly augmenting what Sunshine was giving us. And then all of a sudden they ran into some quality issues last year, and the Mint has not been able to get them back online on silver.
Okay.
So Legion Gardner's no longer supplier. So the Mint, believe it or not, has this $1 billion business line that is basically more or less held hostage by one private sector blank supplier.
It's just crazy. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you use the word mismanagement. One might ask is, whoever's in charge of the procurement, how could you allow your program to be,
Right. Yeah. I have a much bigger mismanagement if they're running the hedge book too, because in 2021, the hedge book lost $111 million, and it was a year that the price of silver went down. So the hedge book should have made money to cover it.
That's news to me.
Oh my God! I saw that. I'm like, what in the world is going on?
You saw that in the Mint's annual report?
Yeah. Because I have this spreadsheet. I look at like the hedge book. Usually, almost every year, covers any gains or losses as it's set up to do in their silver purchases. But 2021, I bet you it was in the second half of that year too. $111.7 million loss on the hedge book.
Well, how can the Mint lose $100 million on its hedge book
when the price of silver went down? So it's basically a double loss for them, for you guys.
Okay. Yeah. I don't run the Mint hedge book. The first day I showed up here, I sold 10,000 ounces of gold. I went upstairs to the quote-unquote hedge book desk and said, okay, I need to hedge these 10,000 ounces. And they looked at me sideways and said, what are you doing here? And I said, I come from a New York bank. I ran a gold desk, and you have to hedge what you sell. And then my profit is my premium. And they said, yeah, but you don't have anything to do with the hedge.
That's our game to play.
You're not in procurement. You need to get off this floor. You have nothing to do with the hedge. And so I'm not allowed to be involved in the Mint's hedge book.
No, yeah, it's a catastrophe.
And even though I've had years of experience doing it, my point is, every time I sell gold, my hedge book, my premium that I pay, that we pay, that the hedge book pays, is always low enough to ensure that the premium I'm charging my primary dealers is sufficient to cover the cost of my, as you call it, my hedge book.
Mm-hmm.
So silver is supposed to be the same way.
Yep.
We're not supposed to be losing any money on the silver hedge book.
No, it's a break even.
And if we're losing $100 million, then it isn't the Mint in violation of the enabling legislation?
Yes.
The program's not allowed to operate at any net cost to the taxpayer. So why isn't anybody calling the Mint on that?
Well, I have a lot of watchers and listeners to my blog, and I mean, I've gotten them motivated to send a lot of letters to Congress, but it just really goes into a black hole.
Yeah.
It's rare that they do anything.
But if you're saying that's actually published in a Mint annual report that silver hedging operations lost $100 million. I mean, what you said doesn't make sense. If the price of silver, because the price of silver dropped, the whole concept of being hedged is you're hedged against market fluctuations.
That's the only reason to do the hedge.
That's the whole purpose of the hedge. So what happens in the silver market should have nothing to do with your profit and loss. If you're sufficiently hedged.
Yep.
If you're losing money, then you weren't sufficiently hedged. And then is it Isn't that a congressional investigation? Why weren't you sufficiently hedged? What, were you speculating in the commodities markets?
Or trying to keep the price down? Now, if you throw naked hedges down and...
Well, my premium is fixed. Every time I sell silver, I'm charging the silver fix, as they call it, plus $2.95 an ounce.
Yep. Yep.
And the procurement people are supposed to be buying silver,
So
at some level that ensures that $2.95 premium that I'm charging covers their costs of hedging.
Yeah. Hey, Jack, can I ask you a question about the redesign of the Eagle? I mean, I know they call it a security feature, that little notch in the bottom.
Yeah, don't get me started on that. Don't get me started on that.
What's the plan for the notch? I mean, the only thing I can figure is that they're going to put some kind of like a QR code on that little micro notch, and I don't know.
Look, David Ryder, God love him, came to the Mint, and he came from a company that was involved in anti-counterfeiting type things.
Yep.
And so, remember, these Mint directors have to go before Congress to be confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his, as we say in the ad business, that was his pitch. That, counterfeiting bullion coins is becoming a really big problem. Well, guess what? It's not.
Right.
It never has been. Yes, there are a few out there, but it's not a problem. So, the people made it sound like there was a problem. And so if he's director of the Mint, he's got this experience with counterfeiting that he can come in and he can address the counterfeiting problem. So, he came in here, and the legislation for the bullion program said that after, it didn't say it in the legislation. There's some sort of standing legislation involving mint coinage, legal tender coinage in general, not just the bullion program.
Right.
Legal tender coinage in general that says something to the effect, and you'll have to look this up, that after 20 years or 25 years, the designs can be changed without congressional authority.
Huh.
So the Eagle was designed, Lady Liberty on one side, Walking Liberty on the silver. The Mint's not going to change that because those are iconographic and most beloved coin, designs in coinage American history. But the reverse, the reverse of the gold was designed by a Republican designer in Texas named Miley Buziak. And guess what? At the time the Eagle program came out, it was a Republican administration.
Right.
So Miley Buziak got the call to design that family of Eagles. And so Ryder, his I don't know what you want to call it, his vanity project, if you will, was, I'm going to change the designs of the Eagle. And I stood up to him and said, you don't change the designs of bullion coins, Dave. Look at the Crew Grand, look at the Maple Leaf. You can change designs on numismatic coins. That's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Different designs, different vintages, because they're collectible. Bullion coins are bought inherently for the value of the precious metals content. Mm-hmm. Their designs don't change. By nature, their designs really shouldn't change. Now, there are mints that make quote-unquote semi-numismatic bullion coins.
Right.
And that do feature changing designs, but those are not pure bullion. They're sort of numismatic bullion. They have limited vintages. Bullion are supposed to be made to demand and unlimited vintages, and their designs are not supposed to change. So was I a big fan of the Miley Buziak family of Eagles? Absolutely not.
And what about the security notch? I mean, was there plans to put something in that notch, some kind of identifier?
I don't know. So they changed the design, and one of the reasons for doing all of this was, we need to change the Mint's bullion program and imbue the coins with anti-counterfeiting devices.
Right.
And you can imagine there was a whole slew of ideas. I mean, there's some really wild ideas on what those quote-unquote features would be, from DNA gold, tracking of the actual gold,
yep.
DNA of the gold. I mean, there's some pretty far out stuff.
Yep.
And what did we end up with?
A notch.
Well, we end with a reeded edge that has what do they call it? A skip edge or slip? I can't remember what they call it.
I could take a file to my old coins and put that in there and say, okay, look, there goes the security.
The actual anti-counterfeiting devices that they ultimately decided they were able to do, and to be fair to them being manufacturing, some of the ideas that were being proposed, change costs money, right? And so some of these changes that some people wanted, would drive my premium from 3% to 5%.
Yep.
And hey, guess what? In case you haven't noticed, the U.S. Mint's gold bullion coin is one of the most expensive gold bullion coins within the product category globally.
Oh, yeah.
The last thing I need is to be doing anything to the coin that will force me to raise the prices, because you've now driven the cost of production up, and I have to, by law, cover all my cost of production.
I would like to stop here and say, by law, that cost of production is a pass-through. By law, you have to increase your sale price in order to meet demand. You're going to have to increase that price because you're going to have to buy blanks at a higher price because you're not buying them right now. You need to offer more for the blanks than any other producer on the planet. You are the only program that is required by law to bid whatever the price of the blanks is. And that's by law. And some people have said, well, there's a law that the U.S. government in general can't pay anything over the fair market value of anything. They are buying silver COMEX bars. They take those 1,000-ounce bars they're buying at the delivery price at COMEX. So that is exactly what the law states. They're taking those bars and they're giving them to the Sunshine Mint for production into the blanks, and then they take them in. So, I mean, I've heard so many excuses that just fall flat on their face. The U.S. Mint is not allowed to charge any markups on their bullion program. They are required to pass through all the costs so it doesn't cost the taxpayer anything. Even Jack said, hey, there goes that $100 million loss, $112 million loss on the hedge book. I mean, that's completely against the law. Just another law they're breaking. So just keep that in mind, that the cost shouldn't even matter because it's all baked into the sale price.
So they agreed on the things that they did were agreed upon by and large because they were different than what were on the old coins, and they would not drive production costs up to a point that would prevent me from still charging a 3% premium, which I'm still able to do. So the designs are quite attractive, I think.
I actually,
but you don't want, philosophically, I'm against redesign because I've been on the dealer side, and I don't want to be sitting on a trading desk and some guy called me from Sonoma saying, hey, I got 50 gold eagles, what's your bid? And I don't want to have to say, is that type 1 or is that type 2?
Is the notch there?
All I want to know is American Eagle, like Krugerrands, they have one design, and if you have a type 1 and a type 2, you're going to have different premiums.
Yeah. So there was no plan that you know of to put anything in that notch, any kind of identifier or
no.
So it was just a notch.
No. I never heard of that. It was just, instead of a smooth reeded edge, it was just some kind of notch, and I think they did something with the rays of the sun on the coin as well. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, there were a couple other but they're little tiny enhancements. I can't see how that would help.
There were definitely, enhancements. That's the word you want to use. There are definitely changes made. And you can imagine, what I feared was going to happen, and has happened, is, you get calls from people saying, "Hey, I've got an error coin." Like, what do you mean? I got this gold coin and it's missing a reed. No, that was intentionally done with the redesign, and that's what I mean. Whenever you make changes to things, people just can't handle it. They think they got an error coin, and it's kind of crazy. But I have had people say that they think they have an error coin because of the notch. But I haven't heard of any plans to change the notch or do anything with the notch. Yeah. I think that's pretty steady right now.
I did have it. One of my customers works for a company called Diamond Dust, and what they do is put like micro diamond dust identifiers on things. And he actually took one of the coins and did that in the notch and sent it to me with an identifier, a QR code, like a crypto type of thing.
That's interesting.
I'm like, this is really cool. I wonder if this was the original plan.
Yeah, no, I never heard of that. I think there was some discussion about privy marks at one point in time, but I think those fell by the wayside, and it ended up being pretty insignificant.
Right.
To change it, and I think, again, like I said, I think much of it was driven by cost, trying to keep the cost down, because our premiums are already so high.
Yeah.
I think I may be at 3%, but Canada, I think, is at like 2.5%, and if you're like a really good customer, they may even quote you 2.25%, and they can do that because the price of gold has gone up so much.
Oh, I know.
The Mint, for whatever reason, has decided not to change its premium,
right,
as the price of metal has gone up, and nobody congressionally has called the Treasury on the carpet and said, well, according to this legislation, you're making a hell of a lot more margin on your bullion program now with gold at 2,000 than it was at 400 when you launched. And according to this legislation, you're supposed to be selling them to the public at break even plus a buffer.
Yep.
And so if you're making, the question was always, well, what's that buffer? I mean, it's still for silver. I mean, years ago, if I tried to make a nickel an ounce, my chief counsel, who works for the Department of Treasury, by the way,
yeah,
but the chief counsel that was here would say, when I say, I'm going to have to raise my premium because my costs go up, everything goes up over time, and so I'd go, hey, I want to make a dime margin, and this chief counsel, West Point guy, said, no, you can't. I'll let you make between 3 and 5 cents. That's your margin.
Yep.
And
those were the days.
Now we make a hell of a lot more than 3 to 5 cents per silver coin. But
yep. Crazy stuff. Hey, Jack, I gotta run. Thank you so much for calling me and filling me in. And it's still in my head. It's gonna take a while for me to digest everything, because you're basically saying what I thought, that it is an administrative dictate to not produce to meet demand.
It's a bureau dictate. It's not departmental. It's not right. Treasury. It's the bureau, the Mint, internal Mint management.
Oh, okay. But don't they take their marching orders from Yellen?
My point is I don't think they discussed this with Yellen.
Okay. Now that right there, they didn't discuss it with Yellen, and yet Yellen made the decision to limit the amount of coins being made, which is she's not allowed to limit it. She's required by law to determine what the demand is. And to say that Janet Yellen doesn't understand it after getting the letter from Senator or Congressman Mooney stating exactly this, that you're breaking the law, of course she knows about it. Of course she always did know about it. Of course she laid down the dictate to Ventures Gibson, who is an HR professional for 35 years, has nothing to do with any Mint operations all the way up until she was put as the head of Biden's, the director of the Mint. Yes, of course they talked about it. Of course it was Yellen's. If Yellen's saying I didn't make the decision, then the U.S. Mint is really out of bounds, really breaking the law, because it is Janet Yellen's decision. Anyway.
Some things they have to discuss with Yellen, and I'm not privy to what they do discuss and what they don't discuss. Right. But I'm not aware of anyone ever saying we need to go over to the department and lay out how many Silver Eagle bullion coins we're going to make, basis, and let her know this is what demand is, but this is.
Yeah.
So that's something kind of interesting. I'm kind of surprised, but I guess they feel like the Bureau doesn't have to do that.
Right.
But maybe it should. If you're not meeting demand by so much, maybe they should be letting the secretary know. But I don't think they are. I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
But,
well, thank you so much.
Let me know if you have any questions. Call me back.
I will. Is this your work number or cell or?
This is my cell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, Jack.
Good luck, Bix. Bye.
All right. Take care. So, okay, just a couple things. This is part 3. Make sure you listen to parts 1 and 2 of my discussion with Jack Sermon, the head of Silver Eagle Sales Department at the U.S. Mint. When we discussed, the Mint is basically breaking 5. There are 5 areas that they are breaking the law. Number 1 is the obvious one. They're not making coins to meet demand. Jack Sermon told us the demand should be between 30 to 40 million. They've mandated the Mint only to make, it was less than 15. I think he said they've just added 4 million, which is still way, way, way below demand. So that's the first law. The second law is that it is illegal for the U.S. Mint to charge to make a profit on bullion sales, on silver and gold eagle bullion sales. That is illegal. That is written into the law exactly how much you charge for these coins. They are making massive amounts of money. They weighed $81 million in 2022, and that is illegal as well. So those are 2 crimes. The third crime is the criminal hedge book. The hedge book, part of the law is that there's no cost to the taxpayer. Well, if they are running a hedge book that loses $112 million in a year when the price of silver went down, that's a massive loss, a lot more than $112 million. That is attempted market manipulation and needs to be investigated for the year of 2021 is when that happened. So that's the third crime they've committed. Number 4 is something that people don't even think about. It is the fact that they are allocating Silver Eagles to their authorized purchasers. That is illegal as well. There is no allocation written into the law. There is only you supply the coins to meet demand. You do not allocate ever. If they have more coins that they want, you go out and you buy the blanks at any price and then you make them. That is the law. And then the 5th law they're breaking is that Ventures Gibson, the head of the Mint, is lying to the public in their 2022 annual report and in letters sent out to U.S. Mint customers. In both those situations, she said that they have greatly expanded Silver Eagle production. And unless she's doing it on the sly and in secret, she is purposefully lying on an annual report, which is illegal. Let's call up Gary Gensler of the SEC. Because Ventures Gibson is lying on an annual report and lying to the customers in the personalized letters they sent everybody. So that's where we are. That's 5 crimes that are being committed currently at the U.S. Mint. we can't stand for this anymore. It is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Clearly, the head of Silver Eagle Sales is fed up. He's been there 35 years, and really, there's nothing he can do about it. It is a management decision from the Bureau, as he calls it. I did have to look up what he was talking about, the Bureau, and it's every single mint it's called a bureau. So it's the West Point Bureau is part of the mint, which is part of the Treasury for the United States of America. So there you go. 5 laws being broken. We need to stop this. We need to have it stopped. Of course, I'll be contacting anybody and everybody I can. I'm going to put this out to the world and say, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about the criminals that are running our government? And most likely I'll get the answer, what do you mean just the mint, Bix? It's everywhere, and which is true. So that's where we stand in America. This is Bix Weir. Make sure you like and subscribe. Go to roadtoruta.com to get all 3 of the segments of this interview, and join the private road. Get the behind-the-scenes action of how the U.S. Silver Eagle program is being illegally stopped and destroyed. I'll talk to you guys later.